How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the weekly trade review for the week of 4/7. So this week I took 6 trades. I had 3 wins, 2 losses, and 1 break even, and I got $84 in profit. So account grew by about 0.3%. Very volatile week this week. I'm going to put up the D1 chart first. You can see here is the open on the 7th here. Generally, the market trend is up, but huge, massive ranges, massive volume, very newsy environment, and very dangerous. I think it's very easy for people to take massive losses in this environment, and if you made any good gains on this move lower, to give them all back. So after a big drop, that's when you got to be the most careful, because the move has run its course. The price action is going to be different. You can't press as hard, and you have to be ready for the next. And the next move, often a pullback in the main trend to sort of set up. So on the 6 trades I took this week, we're going to start with the price action on Monday, and I took no trades on Monday. I only took day trades this week, no swing trades. So Monday we had this gap down, massive news bar over here that got faded, and there's just a whole bunch of chop. I drew this VWAP from the 4th coming into play, and you can see how the market kind of respected that level, and they're just massive ranges here. Like just look at this candle from high to low. That's like a 50-point S&P candle right over here, and market's making just absolutely massive moves up higher. This is a $10 move higher. So just this choppy range is like, range of 150 points. I don't even know, 508 to 493. It's a $15 move in SPY back and forth. So you got to be ready for this volatility. You got to size appropriately, and you got to pick your spots very, very carefully and pick your stocks very carefully. So no trades on Monday. I came in on Tuesday. We got this gap up. And this gap up was trying to challenge this gap from the 4th post-Liberation Day. And we had a wimpy move to the gap, started to get faded, and we start to fill in some of this downside here. And we tested the low of the day right over here, and we start to break through it on 11:10. So I'm looking for stocks, and I don't think I quite find a stock I like, but I see this pattern right here in SPY. And I really like this pattern because I've seen a nice organized move lower. I saw a wimpy bounce with a double top, and then a clean break of the low of the day through compression on a nice red candle, medium size, not a super long candle. So I take a SPY short here on 1x size, and trickles down lower, comes back, I retest this level, and let me see what I did on my ads. So on this point, I'm thinking, all right, look, I think we have a chance to fill in this gap over here. So I'm watching. We might pause over here a little bit, but I think we can fill in the gap around 504, and that's what I'm trading here. And I enter this position I took day trade 30 shares short at 513.45. So that's about a $9 move in SPY that I'm trying to capture here. So we moved in early, and at 12:42, we got a nice move lower over here. 12:42, I added a 15 shares at 509. So my average price was 511.59, which was about a half, basically added half a position to it. And then another minute later, added another quarter position, which I'll get to in a second. I think that was a bit of a greedy add. I got this green candle here, and I wanted to see it erase a little bit quicker at 12:50 because there was a chance that this could go against me, and it was right at my average price. Now, I did not get that, so I exited my ad basically over here for a tiny loss, but I was still writing in 1x the position, and then I got filled, I believe, at 110. I got filled on this candle right over here. So that was my biggest trade of the week. However, I think there was one mistake I made in here, which was when I added, because these are volatile moves. I would have been fine adding over here. I wanted to add a 509 when we test the 8 EMA. We got a green candle that gets erased. So we got this leg over here. They got erased, but I didn't really know what to make of this tail, so I didn't want to add. We got the follow through over here, which was good. So I was thinking of adding, but I didn't quite get my fill on the last, 30 seconds of this candle. So I didn't do it. We got the bounce off this AV WAP, which is fine. And then I kind of panicked because I was okay with the green bar, but I wanted to see it get engulfed immediately over here. And it got engulfed in 2 bars, which is like nothing crazy. So the add and the volatility made me a little bit of a nervous Nelly here. But I still stuck with the position and, took some nice profits in here. Now, I really should have, I think what I really should have done is entered here, right? I'm fine with the small add here, but I think the quarter add put me over here. So add half here when we start to break through a VWAP, and then you take gains over here. So if I added half at 509, then add another half at 5, let's call it 507.70 or something like that, right? So my average price is somewhere like 510 of a 2x position, and then I take a pretty nice gain into strength at 504.80. So that would have been, I don't know, call it like a $5 gain on a 2x size, which would have been pretty nice overall. So that was the first trade. That was a nice win for the day, and I was just seeing what else would set up. Now we filled in the gap. I figured that we could see a bounce at this level. I was putting up the prior day AV WAPs just to see, what would come in line here. The other AV WAP came over here, so I figured that this is a good place to take some gains. And then SPY bounced over here, just kind of chopping from the AV WAPs. We get a higher low, and then we get a pounce, and then we start to actually crack down right about here. So when I see this breakdown here, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is pretty much the same exact pattern as here. Steady red selling. We try to bounce, then we break down compression, no bounce. Steady red selling, try to bounce, no bounce, we break down compression. So I entered another day trade short, 30 shares at 572. I wasn't worried about the 500 resistance at this moment. I figured with this current price action, I can take some gains into strength and call it a day. Now, it was in the last hour trading. I didn't want to push my luck, so I figured if I could take $2 or $3 in this trade, I'm happy with it. So I got this nice long red candle over here, and I just took gains. So I took a $3 gain on this guy here, on this candle. Had a little bit more follow through. So, again, you could say, oh, maybe you could have pressed for like $5 here. But, not going to press my luck again in this environment. So I'm happy with the nice win on that. And I just didn't have the confidence to really stick through it with that much longer. But yeah, so that was a nice win for that day. I think, a couple of small tweaks. I think the ad, getting out of the ad because I was afraid of the losses, might have been a little prudent in this environment, but I would say that it was a reflection of me not adding at the right amount and adding very quickly that because of greed. So that's something I got to work on, but I'm glad I am adding to winning positions and building that muscle. So that is a mistake that is a good mistake to make because it shows that I'm trying to add and trying to basically add to my winners, because that's how I get these big wins, right? When I get the trade to move in my favor and I have a 2x or 3x position, that's when you get the really big wins. Okay. So that was the 2 trades I took today. I didn't take any stock trades. I found in this day, because this SPY trend was so strong, that it was really difficult to find relatively weak stocks because the market also didn't really bounce to give us any sort of strong trend. So when the market has a really strong trend, that's when I feel like it's easier for me to trade SPY, and that's the only time I'm really trading it. Because it's also hard to find the relatively weak stocks, right? Like the weak stocks here are stocks that are just churning down throughout this gap. But then I'm like, well, if it's churning down all the way, I don't really want to chase this stock. I prefer entering on some sort of little bounce or at least a compression break or something. So I'm able to try to find stocks that are relatively strong and then cycle in weak, and maybe they bounce here but then cycle back down over here. And as long as I get the market right, I can trade them. Who knows? But I found today there was two nice, very clean setups for me to trade SPY over here, and I was pretty happy to do so. You probably could have taken even another short here, but I felt this was a little bit too early. I like seeing this again. We got this contra move. We got a gap up, so that's a favorable day for a gap fill reversal. And I figured also in my initial trade, I figured that there would be some resistance around 594. So, there's some support here. Might be some support here. Come into play. Okay, so April 9th, massive big pop kind of day. It was like an FOMC type of day. I didn't take much trades. The only trade I took was on 4.9. So let's look at ON. Now the D1 chart of this stock isn't anything insane, but you can see on this day, on basically it had a little bit of relative strength intraday. D1 chart was a little bit bearish, but I was just looking to try to find stocks with some nice intraday price action that I could take a nice little win on. So on earlier in the day, right, SPY is moving down, kind of below VWAP, just poking around over here. I liked on that had, instead of SPY, which had a flat open and meandered around, on had a flat open, had some nice relative strength early in the day, and actually popped above this compression right here. So I entered on at 33.10. I was long 100 shares at 33.10. Compressed for a while, and I actually just scratched out of this trade maybe about 20 minutes in, because I was like, there's this bond auction coming up. There's some news. Trump is going to talk. So I was like, well, I don't really want to be in this trade. So, if I'd stayed in the bond auction, I probably would have taken gains even at 33.60. I was targeting like a pop, and when I didn't get the pop immediately, I figured I'd just get out of the trade. Obviously, you could say, hey, look, in hindsight, if you had just stayed in this trade at $33, right, you could have taken $6. I could have made $600 on the single trade, but really had no idea that we get this pop. So I was not positioned for it. The other option for me was as soon as I get this pop, on is on my radar, and I just hop in the trade. That can work, but it's really tough to get in on that immediately with conviction. You have to see these two stacked green candles, massive candles with volume, and you're going to get follow through. So I would have to take it here, and I have to size for a move that would be, a $3 move. So I have to size for something like probably down in here. So probably long maybe another 100 shares at 32, was this 35, 34. So get in at 32, 34. So I can take a move all the way down to here as a max loss. That's probably what I have to do. You have to hop in really quick to get in on that. But you could get some nice profits, and maybe even add to this trade on a little dip over here. So that was on. I'm not really sweating that one, to be honest. I know there's some traders. Pete made some nice money that day. So a couple of traders had some nice moves on the move up, nice gains on the move up. But, I feel like I didn't jump on this and have the conviction, especially with a lot of this intraday kind of stuff coming in the way. There was the gap fill, right? So here's the gap fill over here. That's where we closed. We had the gap fill right here. We had an AVWAP E over here. We had this other gap close over here. So there's all these little levels that I was like, we could break through because the volume is so massive and this is a major news catalyst. But how confident I am that we're actually going to see that immediate movement, I didn't know. So I didn't take the trade. So yeah, I mean, if you feel like you had FOMO on this, that's kind of it's the opposite of those low volume kind of dead days, like something like this. Even though this is low volume in quotes, even though the range is still pretty big relative to most things. These big volume trend days, you can feel FOMO because you miss out on these giant moves. But on the flip side, if you get caught on the wrong side of this move, you can be destroyed really, really quickly. And especially if you don't have conviction to hold in the stock. Like if you were short on, I don't know why you'd be short on over here, but let's say you were short on, right? If it went to this massive $6 move and it actually came back and gave away all the gains today, and even tested this low over here. So for what it's worth, right, this whole move was pretty much fluffed out in the next 2 days. And institutions took that time to unload on that shares quite a bit. Okay, so that was on. That was a scratch. Next day, so coming to the day over here, we see a gap down. We see a flat compression over here. Market not really producing on this bullish cross, and then starts to produce on this bearish cross, breaks to the low of the day. And then we see some nice steady selling that ends up with a selling climax, and it tests Actually, this VWAP that we talked about earlier, which was from the 4th. And I've just been kind of drawing these VWAPs over here because we're in this kind of massive inside day. Let me actually do that again. So I'm just putting these down here because we're in this massive inside day. And if the market's not making any sort of net movement, I just want to see kind of, okay, I mean, do we have the volume to break through? What I've noticed with these VWAPs is that obviously if there's volume, you're going to blast through it, no problem. On these low volume kind of choppy days, right, or relatively low volume, I should say, there's a lot more bouncing and poking around of these levels as we try to get a bid. So when we start to break through these levels and get above it and we test them enough, then you can start to get long. But outside of that, like, you can see here, test, break down. We get a test here, break up, come back, test it, and we're just kind of chopping around here. So they are helpful, especially when we're below. Like, I think they're very helpful, I think, in an inside day situation. For an inside, if you're in a trending day, you're not going to test the other day VWAP because the VWAP is going to be lower here and the price is going to be higher, right? If I just look at like, right, if I were to draw a VWAP from here, right, you can see on a trending day, right, this is literally irrelevant because we're continuing the trend lower. When it becomes important is when the trend starts to stall and we start to reverse. Then you want to just keep an eye on them intraday, especially if the volume is low and the price action is choppy, right? If you have strong volume and price action, you can see how we churn through these, and these just end up being little stopping points and resting points for the market where we get a little pop, and if the trend is good, it gets smacked down, right? Little pop gets smacked down, and then we end up finding some support over here. All right, so with that lesson aside, on this day, we got this move down lower, and at this juncture, I'm thinking, and I think I mentioned this in the one option chat, I was like, hey, look, I'm looking for a wimpy bounce and a rejection off of VWAP. So I think the ideal entry here to me was 105. You get close at 517. And so the short I took on that day was BMY. Let's look at this chart. Yeah, so BMY, pretty massive move here. And it was one of the few stocks that was actually below its prior day low. So it was looking pretty nice on a D1 chart. Let's look at this over here. Yeah, so I like this. You can see, first of all, when SPY was flat, this stock was moving lower. And then as soon as SPY started to flip over and we start to get some tailwind, we get this nice little break of compression here at 1045. So this is a beautiful entry point on the stock. And we ride down over here. So there's one little entry over here. Now, where I took BMY was this kind of break of the low of the day right here. This is a bad print on these candles. I wish, fuck, there was a scrub feature. Get rid of them. But I took it right here at 110. I took it at 48.88. You can see right at this low. And then immediately, right, market over here formed a higher low, started to inch up higher. And this stock started to also inch up higher. And it was looking pretty good. I wasn't really worried at this point because I was like, hey, look, coming back to test this level, okay, may not go against me, but I have a chance to maybe scratch out of this trade here. It's very unlikely this will kind of just rip up in my face. But we poked through the high of the day here. We held VWAP. We broke a little bit higher. And then you can see how this stock pushed over here. And we got a pop above VWAP. Now, I was sized for a move to about 50.88, right? A size for a $2 move on this stock, which was a clean break above VWAP. So we got this pop. But oftentimes what you'll see in this pop is that we get a poke above VWAP, and this kind of lures in bullish specs. And then we get a nice red candle that slaps back on this face. So I still wasn't worried. I was like, all right, well, I don't think this is going to be a winner per se. We got an hour, 40 minutes left in the day. SPY is looking decently bullish here. And the other thing I'm kind of wary is that from this point on the 7th, we have been making higher lows, right? So on these big moves down, you want to be careful. We're at a big inside day. Buyers might come in and support the move. So I was worried about that, but I felt like I had a good entry point in both the market and the stock. But I got the market wrong. So over here, we got a little bit of a smackdown. and we got a test. We got a test in this move, and then when I saw this move here, I took the loss at 50.83. So pretty much took a max loss on this guy. And then later in the day, you can see that it did sell off a little bit, so I had a chance to maybe save 50 to $1 But at this point, when I'm seeing this type of price action, I'm thinking, okay, well, it literally broke through, tested VWAP, and is moving up. We got some nice long green candles with not a lot of retracement, right? Green candle, hold, hold, hold. Green candle, hold, hold, hold. Green candle, test, hold. We get the smackdown over here, so I guess that lured in the specs. But yeah, I mean, market's kind of moving up in this bullish channel. So figured I'm gonna get out of this trade, and you know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I took the max loss, but what I was proud of was that I'm really trying to stick with my system of hitting stocks that are weak relative to the market, right? They are trending, and I'm entering them when the market kind of cycles with itself. Now, in this case, I just got the market wrong, and that's going to happen. I got the market wrong, and the stock gained its relative strength. So I did not have that working in my favor, even though it was relatively weak at the time, and that just kind of happens, right? That's gonna happen from time to time. That's one of the kind of worst case scenarios that play out. The thing is that for high win rate trader, it should be a very rare scenario. So I was pretty proud of myself overall, even though I took the loss on this stock. I felt that I checked all my check boxes, and this was just a loser that happens. Okay, so let's get to Friday. Friday, we have a fairly flat open. There's a tiny gap down, although tiny is like $3, so make of that what you will. We're just chopping around here a little bit. And if I were to draw this AVWAP again, right, just kind of layering these in. So, I mean, now the colors are getting kind of a little bit crazy. But the main point is here, as you can see that we're kind of stacking all these colors, and we're just compressing for a while over here. And then we start to get some liftoff. So for the first half of the day, it looks like a choppy range-bound day that we're not really doing anything. But then we start to get a poke up over here. We break through the high of the day. So we have a little bit of a trend, but I know that there's a gap fill and there's AVWAP-E. There's also this like longer-term AVWAP coming into play around 528-ish, right? So that is acting. You can see that this level right here, around 527, so 527.60 is sticky, and that's because if you put up the SPY chart, there's this AVWAP literally from, oh my gosh, this is from the pivot point of the October, yeah. So this October low pivot, the beginning of that bull trend on 10/27/23, well, we are here. We are at that line. We have intersected that line. You can see it comes into play right at about 528.61, right? And here is 528.61, right? So somewhere about here, you can see how we are kind of just repeatedly testing this line over here. Now, you don't honestly have to worry about it that much. You can just take a look at it in the price action. The price action will confirm that. So when you see a lot of touches over here, right, a lot of touches over here, that's going to be kind of a weak line of support and resistance intraday that you can lean on, right? And it's broken and it gets tested over here. Okay, so we break the high of the day and we pull back kind of weakly over here. So right now I'm actually looking for some strong stocks because we get this nice trend and we're pulling back in this trend. So this is something I can find, at least of something to work with here. And on a move up higher, I can say, all right, well, we can try to break through the high of the day at least. And if we can try to get through the gap and this AVWAP Q, we should be in shape. So we get this long green candle at 135, and that is when I strike. So I take two trades. I take ARM, and here is ARM when I took the setup. So let's just kind of rewind back in time. So this is the setup here. This is a setup in ARM. I liked how, right, it pulled back, and then it just kind of stopped and compressed and didn't really do too much. It was kind of flat relative to the market, I would say. But I loved this move up higher. I thought this was a pretty strong move on ARM, and it was filling in this gap. It had some room to go until it filled in the gap over here. The close and even the high of yesterday. So, excuse me, felt like I had a nice room to work here with ARM and had a nice little bed of support that I could lean on. The second trade I took was TXN. So ARM, I took 75 shares at 108, 104.81. For ARM, for TXN, I took 60 shares at 148.30. So ARM is it was kind of a gap fill reversal trade. There was some news, or not on ARM, on TXN. There was some overnight news that I forgot, but it just popped up on TX. And I kept an eye on it because the volume was really good. And that way it would give me some orderly price action. So when SPY dipped down over here, you can see that it made a higher low. When SPY dipped down over here again, you can see that it compressed and then it broke the compression. So there's one entry point, maybe somewhere here you could take an entry point. It's a little fishy. I would have preferred a candle that closed like right over here. But you could take an entry right here. I think the better entry was somewhere around here when we broke through this high of the day and we held this candle. So I think this is the ideal entry for me to get in the trade at 1240. However, you can see that it was relatively weak. So when I'm taking these gap fill reversal trades, I need to see relative strength. It can dip between relative weak and relative strength. That's fine. But when I enter the trade, I want to see relative strength. That's one of my criteria. So at 1245, the market is rallying, right? And TXN is looking good, but it's not really rallying with the market. So I don't know that if the market stalls and pulls back, TXN could also pull back, right? I don't know if this is a zero or a fake. So market pullback here. TXN comes back in, tests this low, and then we get this nice long candle over here that closes at 147.96. So I just missed the close of this candle. I kind of hop in at 148.30. So slightly suboptimal entry by like 30 cents. I'm really trying to nail these entries, but this is a pretty nice entry in the market. This is what I want to see, where we see a nice long green candle that jumps up. Okay, so now on these things, there's two things I'm watching for. First are the low of the day, but second on these gap fill reversal trades, I'm often watching the prior day AVWAP, and that's usually where the trade will stall out. So you can see that that's kind of what happened today, where we tested this, we got a double top and tested this, and we kind of stalled out over here before dropping down. So took the trade here. We got an immediate test of this level. I bidding for 150. It didn't quite get filled. Sometimes it can poke above it. I got to 149.88, so it didn't get filled, and then it pulled back against me and lost some relative weakness. And this is what's happening when the market broke up higher and then started to drift and pull back. Now, the pullback in the market wasn't that, come on, crosshairs. The pullback in the market, you can see over here, it was not super deep, right? We did test low this candle, but it was kind of a wimpy pullback. We didn't really do much, and then we started to rise up higher. But the way we rose up was also really wimpy. So I wasn't like, I'm not super, I really don't have a ton of conviction by the time it's like, 240, 245. I prefer to see like a move like this where we get some nice, at least some nice green candles. But there is a bid here, but it's not a super strong bid. So you want to get in on these dips and add on these dips here. So we got a dip over here, and then I got a nice long green candle at 235. So I added to the position here. So I had a 2x position on at basically I think at so I added at 149. So I had a 2x position on at, let's see, 120 shares at 140 something. I'm not sure. 148.70, I guess, would be. No, 148.60. I'm sorry. 148.60 on 2x size. And then we kind of poked up over here, and I'm thinking, look, all right, if we do not break in the next candle, I'm going to take gains because this is probably going to be a double top. Market is dead. This is natural resistance, and we got a deeper retracement that was a little more organized this time. So when I saw this candle here, I took gains at 149.50 and took a nice gain on 2x size. So pretty happy with TXN. It didn't play out as exactly as I wanted to, but a win is a nice win. The other one I took, I'm going to go back to ARM. So ARM, I took 75 shares here. I added half to the size. I added like 33 shares at 105.30. When I added here, 105.22. So what I liked about this was we had poked up through the high of the day, right? I was waiting for a test of the 8 EMA and then a confirmation. So I got this test of the 8 EMA and the confirmation, and I liked what I saw here. This was looking pretty good to me. Now, the volume was pretty low, and it was not super strong. But if I look at the candle at 150, yeah, I mean it was holding up pretty well, and it was advancing up higher. It was gaining some relative strength, especially when SPY started to pull back over here. But then we got a kind of a deeper dip over here at 140, 147, 250, and I saw the market kind of not really doing a whole lot at this juncture. Right, it was taking a little bit of time to start to rally. I didn't know if we're gonna get liftoff or not. We got a little bit of liftoff over here. So I took the loss at 104.46. So I added to the position. So my average was something like 104.92. So I got out maybe for like a 45-cent loss on a 1.5x position, which ended up being a small loss overall. Now, you can see post-mortem wise, I had a chance to maybe, again, this is the triple top. So test, triple top. I probably would have taken gains on this candle had I held. And I think the conviction to hold is maybe you see there's 1 OP bullish cross here. And the fact that we got this hammer, the bid is likely to hold. It's very rare that you get a hammer and then you get, a hammer and then something like, immediately smacks it down. That'd be quite bearish. But I kind of wanted to take a small loss because I was like, I don't really know what's going to happen here. It's been an hour. This market hasn't moved anywhere. Stock hasn't moved anywhere. So let me just get out of the position. I did have a chance to scratch out of this trade somewhere over here at 245. So I might have been able to do that. I could see that this stock wasn't really rallying with the market. And the market's starting to move up higher. I just wanted to give the market a little bit more time here at 245. But I had a chance to take a smaller loss over here. Didn't end up manifesting. But not too bummed about ARM. I mean, these are just tiny little adjustments on the intraday chart. And it's just kind of getting used to the ads. Sometimes with the ads, I notice I'm adding a little bit aggressively in these environments. Maybe I can let this one ride a little bit on the original entry. Wait for that dip and then the confirmation on the ad, especially in a stock like this. Especially if there's not really a strong tailwind, or I have to be a little bit more conservative with scratching out of the ads. You can see how this differs versus the SPY price action, where in the SPY price action, I kind of bailed out of the ad too early, and in this case, I didn't, I bailed out a little bit later than I would have liked to, and it cost me. So you're not going to get all of them right, but it's a learning process nonetheless. So those are the 6 trades I took this week. I think overall, I mentioned this one option a couple times. It is a dangerous week. You can easily give back the gains if you weren't ready. And after a lot of this activity, right, it kind of tends to die down. I think there's a good chance we're going to be trapped in a pretty wide base. We might base out for the next rest of the month, to be quite honest, as we have more earnings coming up, as we wait for mega cap tech earnings. Now, if you hold the top of the space and we form a couple of tails over here, I would be inclined to start favoring the short side, because it tells you that institutions are still pretty aggressive and they are not looking to they're looking to offload shares and de-risk. So that's what I'd be kind of leaning on over here. And we have a nice entry where there's plenty of room here, right? This is 547. You got plenty of room, $50 of room on the SPY down to this level to swing. And you have a good chance of taking this out. And when you take it out, when it starts to extend lower, you can make that move. The other chance is you can say, look, we could also have a nice taller bounce to the 200-day SMA, erase all these gains, which is just tell us that there's a lot of volatility. Have to be a little bit more careful swing trading, and we'd want to pick our spots carefully in terms of day trading. Now, there was a couple of nice day trading days today. I think Tuesday was the really nice day to day trade. Wednesday is really tough to day trade, in my opinion. And the rest of the week is pretty tough. But this was the one good day this week where I think you could trade SPY and do pretty well. The other days you had to pick your spots and you had to be careful. So thanks for watching, everyone. This is the weekly trade review this week. A couple things you might have noticed. I've been talking about my wins and losses. A lot of my trade count has come down considerably. Before it used to be like 10 or 12 trades. Now it's like 6 or 8 trades. So I'm really trying to be precise, really trying to slow down and pick my spots and gain confidence in my picks. I am tracking my streak. So far, in terms of following my setup, I have a streak of 9 trades out of the 12 trades this month. So the first 3 trades, I didn't really quite follow it. The next 9 trades, I have been following it. So that gives me a lot of confidence. Win or lose, I want to follow my streak, want to follow my setups to the T. And at the end of Q2, I can see how I did and what I need to tweak. But it's going to take a while for me to accumulate that data and so on. So far, 2 out of 2 for green weeks. I've not had 3 green weeks in a row, so we'll see if I can do it next week. I don't know if I can, but all I know is that I'm going to follow my system, and I'm going to be smart, and I'm going to be prudent with the trades that I take. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all in next week's video.